What's up, all my musicians out there? So for this video, I'm gonna give you a very pessimistic approach of why you shouldn't attend music production schools, whether it's in person or online. You know, especially online, there's so many online colleges for music production that have blown up everywhere. And I've talked a lot in a lot of other videos explaining that, look, I don't think music production schools are worth it. And when I say that, a lot of people are asking, well, why not? You know, I think especially with electronic music really blowing up here in America, a lot of people, instead of, wanting to learn an instrument, say, hey, instead of playing piano or saxophone, I'd rather learn how to produce. In addition to that, a lot of people are saying, well, instead of going to a university or another college for a different degree, why not just go to a music production school instead, right? You can be spending money either way, right? You can be getting a degree kind of either way, and I'll get to that. Why not go to music production school instead? So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you shouldn't attend a music production school. Number 1, you can learn everything for free online. If you're planning to go to music production school, especially a music production school online, I mean, think about it. Well, the difference between taking online classes and like watching YouTube and all the free content on YouTube, about the same, right? Especially, I've even seen some music production schools online that have pre-recorded videos. And I'm like, wait a minute. So what you're saying is you just have free YouTube videos versus paid YouTube videos. Because if they're already pre-recorded, what's the difference? Now, don't get me wrong, especially if you're doing a music production school in person, yes, it's a little bit more customizable. You can obviously raise your hand and ask questions. Even, let's say, with a music production school online, it may be like an online Zoom class or however they do it, where you can actually ask in real time. But the truth is, you can watch YouTube videos or even hire a coach, which is going to be way cheaper. Let's say you hire somebody to be like, hey, I'll spend 2 hours a week with you, give me $50 an hour, so it's $100 a week. That's going to be way cheaper than spending tens of thousands of dollars for that online music production program or that in-person music production program. Obviously, the online one's going to be a lot cheaper than the in-person one. In addition, let's say you're like, look, I'm tight on money, I have no money at all. Well, why take out a loan for $20,000 or $30,000 for this music production school when, again, you can learn everything online for free. You can download project files and the DAW that you're using. For example, let's say Ableton. You can download project files, and this is my best advice for anybody. Download a project file that's really well made and backwards deconstructed. Why do they mix this way? Why do they use a compressor in this particular manner? Why do they EQ this element in this particular way? In addition, you can easily join a forum for free on Reddit or on all these other sites and post one of your songs. Say, hey, you know what? I've been working on this track. For some reason, I can't get the snare to punch through the mix. Any tips? Or for some reason, this lead, it just doesn't have that power behind it that I want. Any tips there, right? So I feel like when it comes to music production school and when it comes to learning how to make music, you can learn everything 100% for free online. Number 2, nobody cares. Now, I don't mean this in a harsh way, right? But the biggest thing I want to say is that when it comes to being a music producer, all people care about is your portfolio, or basically, can you produce music? Whether you want to become, like, say, an electronic artist, right, and become like one of those people who's, like, say, DJing on the main stage, traveling the world, or, like, say, you want to be more of a producer / engineer, more behind the scenes, working with an artist with their track. Now, taking a sidestep, I used to be an accountant, in case you didn't know. And I've said this in other videos. So when it comes to getting an accounting job, you actually need an accounting degree from an accredited university. So for most accounting jobs and any career in accounting, they want to see, did you actually go to a legitimate accredited university or college to get that accounting degree, to get that accounting knowledge? If not, they will not hire you. Even if you know everything about accounting, they won't. Same thing with, like, say, being a nurse or a doctor. They want to see, did you actually go to a school that taught you things you need to know, that gave you that degree or that certification that showed, yes, this person can be a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or an accountant or whatever the case is. So for those kind of professions, they really care about, did you actually go to a legitimate school? Did you actually get a legitimate degree? But when it comes to music production, nobody cares what school you went to or the degree. It's all about the connections you're going to make at the school, or hopefully the connections you can make at the school, and the knowledge that you have, and obviously combining those two, having really, really good music. Music always speaks first. And that's a big thing I want to say, because if you go to, like, say, a legit studio and you say, hey, you should hire me, I could start, because guess what? I went to blah, 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 blah school. Now, some places might be like, okay, they went to the school, so maybe they have a little bit more legitimacy than someone who does it, but honestly, they're really not going to care at the end of the day. They just want to see, can you actually produce music? Do you know how to engineer music? So my best advice for everyone out there is, instead of going to a music production school and spending all this money, go to a studio or contact a studio or move somewhere that has the best studios there and say, hey, you know what? I just want to work here for free, right? I want to be an intern. I'll do the cliche coffee runs and getting lunch. I'll be the janitor if I have to. I was even hearing about that Prince, the famous artist Prince, was actually a janitor in the studio in return for studio time to work in the studio. That's a great trade-off, right? And I know you're saying, oh, Mark, well, I don't want to work for free. I don't want to be the intern for free. Well, guess what? Free is going to be still zero money, as opposed to being in debt tens of thousands of dollars. Number 3, you can't teach creativity. Now, this is a big thing that a lot of people forget about and very much so overlook when it comes to music production schools. When it comes to making music, especially with producing music, you really kind of have 2 sides to it, in my opinion. You have the technical side that's, like I said, very technical, right? You have things like EQing, compression, reverb, how to mix, how to master. They're more, I'd say, technical and analytical aspects of music. Things like music theory as well, and chords and progressions and scales. Very technical, I'd even say even mathematical when it comes to the engineering and the producing side of music. But then, of course, as we all know, there's the whole creative side to music. And yes, a music production school will help you a lot with the technical side. They teach you a lot about music theory, scales and chords and what they all mean and whatnot. They'll teach you how to mix, how to engineer, how to master, how to do all this kind of technical stuff. But they won't teach you the creative side. That is something that really has to come from you. And this is something that, honestly, I feel like whether you go to music production school or not, especially for me being an electronic artist, it is something that just happens over time. Over time, I think especially in the beginning, you kind of start out, you don't know really what you're doing, you kind of have some creative stuff. I find it's almost like a reverse bell distribution where you kind of start out, if anything, you're probably the most creative because you're not thinking more logically about all these technical aspects of music. You kind of get less creative, in my opinion, because then you're kind of going with the flow, right? You're following the mainstream path. And then I feel like you kind of get to this third stage where you're just as creative as you were in the beginning, but now you have all the technical knowledge of how to actually make music on the technical side, and it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? But I think to get to that third stage, it just takes, it took me years where, like I said, in the beginning, my music was so bizarre, so weird, and super creative. Then it got kind of more mainstream, so to speak, because I started understanding more technical elements, and naturally, they kind of steered me, I think, a little bit towards the mainstream path. But then I started developing my own sound, my own voice of how I want to make music, and now I make music. There's a combination of world music, house music, and bass music. But I only got to that stage because I just spent the time in the studio, messing around, seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. And if you think about it, they really can't teach you it, right? How do you teach somebody to be creative in the studio? It just kind of happens organically. Another thing I will say regarding music production schools is that they might stifle your creativity, which is even worse. Now, this really depends upon the person teaching you or your coach or your mentor or whatever the case is. I had friends who went to a music production school who were big into, like, say, making one specific style of music. I know one of my friends was big into, like, psytrance and psychedelic style music. That was his thing. And he found that any single time he went to somebody for advice about his track, rather than give him some technical advice, like, you know what, this needs to be mixed a little better. Your master is not as good. Your kick needs to be more at the forefront of your mix, or whatever the case is. He found they were saying, oh, you know what, you should change your track to do this and this. And he found that a lot of the advice he was getting was more geared towards making that track more mainstream, more normal sounding, more, so to speak, radio friendly. And he's like, wait a minute, he's like, I'm going to school to learn how to make my music that I want to make, yet they're kind of stifling my creativity to make it more mainstream, because as you can imagine, psytrance and psychedelic music as far from mainstream or radio as you can get. So I will say this is something that you kind of understand over time. You send your track to different producers, is some producers are good enough to say, hey, I'm not really into bass music, but I can give you good advice about this track. I'm not really into house music or psychedelic music or whatever the case is, but I can still help you with this track. But other producers will want to kind of stifle and hinder your creativity because it suits them the best of what music they like the most. And again, this is something in a music production school you don't know who you're going to get. If it's the same case, like I said with my friend, you may get somebody who's really trying to stifle your creativity so it fits more the mold or the mainstream, which leads me into the next point. Number 4, you're going to be at different levels. Now, this is true, I guess, for any college class or any course you're ever going to take pretty much anywhere. But I think especially when it comes to music production school, in case you didn't know, a lot of them want to see that you've already been making music. They don't really want beginners. They don't want somebody who's like, oh, I've never produced a song in my life. What is Ableton? What is a DAW? They want somebody who's at least had a few years under their belt of making music, experimenting around with different styles and genres. Think of it in a sense a little bit like Shark Tank, right? When you watch the show Shark Tank, 99% of the people coming into that show are saying, hey, you know, we already have X amount of sales, we've been in business for a few years, we're doing well, but we want to take our game to the next level. We want to get to that next point in business and growing a company. Same thing with music production schools. They want to see at least that you've actually made a decent name for yourself, or like subtly started to get somewhere, and they can get you to that next level. However, if you think about it, when you're in a giant classroom, whether it's online or offline, you're going to have tons of people of all different knowledge levels, and specifically in music production as well. So for example, someone's like, you know what, I'm really good at mixing. I got my mixing down. I just really want to work on sound design. Sound design is something that I just really have to get better at. And it could be vice versa. Someone's like, look, I got sound design down. Sound design's, my bread and butter, but my mixing on my tracks, it really needs work. And this can be super conflicting when you're trying to learn at a music production school. For example, I've heard of music production schools, like say costing around, like say $2,400 a month. I'll just use that random number. And let's say for 1 week out of 1 month, you learn music theory. But let's say you know a lot about music theory. Let's say you're like, look, I've done classical training all my life. I know music theory in and out. Well, that 1 week of learning music theory, yeah, it might be good to brush up a little bit, but you're pretty much just gonna be bored. And it's almost like taking $600 1 week out of that month and just throwing it out the window. And yes, like I said, this does exist in pretty much any class you're ever gonna take, where everyone's gonna be at different levels. But I think especially within music production school, where people have already spent a few years on their own trying to learn music production, it's gonna be kind of annoying where on certain parts, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm bored, I know a lot about this. On other parts, you're gonna be learning a lot, right? And it's always gonna be up and down, which can be a little bit annoying. Number 5. It's expensive. No surprise here, right? When it comes to college degrees, they're insanely expensive. We all know that. And I will say, at least on a good note, most, not all, but most music production schools will actually have more of a year-long program. So as opposed to going up to a college for 4 years, and you're, let's say, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least, I mean, it sounds crazy to say, but at least it's not that much, and it's more tens of thousands of dollars, right? Maybe between $20,000 and $30,000 is what I've seen on average for a music production school for 1 year. So at least it's gonna be less than that, but nonetheless, that's still a ton of money. I have friends, like I said, who went to music production schools, who said to me, like, Mark, I'm not gonna lie, I spent $25K, I'm now $25K in debt. My music career isn't really going where I want to go. I'm now super in debt. I'm trying to work not only to pay my bills, but now to pay off this crazy debt. And I thought that maybe after music production school or this music production program that I did, I'd be way better off, but now I'm not, and now I'm crazy in debt. And that's what I see with a lot of people. Like, one, like I said way in the beginning of this video, you can learn everything online for free. The second thing is, why not take that money that you would spend, invest in a really good studio, get some really good equipment, get some really good software. In addition, that's why I suggest getting a coach. Like say you get a coach for $50 an hour. You say, you know what, we'll do 2 hours a week. That's only $100 a week, which equals $400 a month. That's way less money than you're gonna spend going to a music production school and getting a music production degree. And it might be more individualized. I mean, you could be with a coach one-on-one, let's say 2 hours a week, who's going to one-on-one train you on exactly what you need to work on. It could be a lot more beneficial as well. In addition to, you could spend all this money and not get where you want to go, which leads me into one last point. There is no guarantee for success. Now, I want to basically give this bonus reason because I think a lot of people, and understandably so, when they go to music production school, have this mindset like, okay, if I go to this specific school, I'm gonna make it. I'm 100% gonna make it. I'm gonna be super famous. I'm gonna be traveling the world as, like, say, a DJ, performing on the main stages of all these festivals, or, like, say, I'm gonna be in the studio as an engineer, working with the best hip-hop artists in the world, or whatever the case is. But that's never guaranteed. Now, don't get me wrong. When it comes to me, I've always been the biggest advocate of being optimistic and pursuing your dreams. I used to be an accountant, like I said earlier in this video. I hustled, worked, my butt off for years to get to the point where now, basically, my job is making YouTube videos, making electronic music. I'm literally living my dream, and I'm always the biggest advocate of pursuing your dreams. So I'm not trying to hinder anybody's dreams when it comes to a music production school. I mean, there are a lot of benefits, don't get me wrong. Like I said, this video is meant to be very devil's advocate and a very pessimistic approach to music production schools. But I have seen a lot of music production schools kind of shove their alumni in your face, and don't get me wrong, there are actually a lot of music production schools that have amazing alumni who's gone on to be some of the biggest DJs in the world, or the biggest producers in the world, or whatever the case is. And that's very, very true. Yet I think they try to sell it in a very unrealistic way, where they're like, look at our alumni. If you go to our school, this is gonna be you. And it's like, well, not really. Like I said with my friend, he was explaining to me, he's like, I'm not only in debt, but I'm not going anywhere. I thought that by going to this specific school, I was gonna be able to make it as a DJ and as an artist, and I'm basically now just working a normal job, yet now I'm tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And again, I really have to stress, I'm not trying to be super negative about anybody pursuing their dreams. I'm just trying to be more realistic about saying, look, you can easily achieve your dreams with a music production school, easily. But you can also achieve those same dreams without the music production school.